Welcome to Motivation AI Matters, the podcast where we talk about personalized communication, marketing disruption, and why motivation AI matters for your business. I'm Alex Olesen, here to help you channel the power of language to motivate your customers to engage and act. Welcome back to Motivation AI Matters. Today, I am really excited to be joined by Sarah Luger at Orange Silicon Valley, which is a subsidiary of the French telco Orange. Sarah, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Alex. It's a real pleasure. As you know, I've been working in this space for some time, but also excited about Persato's role in this space. So thank you again for having me. My name is Sarah Luger. I got my PhD at University of Edinburgh many years ago in artificial intelligence. And I'm being quite honest to say that I'm surprised and excited about the developments in this space. In the past, I've worked at startups. I've worked at IBM, building a precursor to the IBM Watson Jeopardy challenge robot. I've also been at Orange Silicon Valley for 5 years, where I worked on numerous topics, including voice biometrics, chatbots, call center technology, and of course, everything that has to do with large language models and generative AI. I'm really excited, especially because, as you may or may not know, Orange is a large company with almost 140,000 employees, and we're in 27 countries. Many of those are in North and West Africa. And many of our customers speak languages that are low resource, which means they don't have a lot of training data. They don't have an online presence that supports the kind of data and that's used in conventional translation systems to create high quality translations. So I've been working a lot in that space, and I do see both potential for large language models to support our customers, but also some peril. And I'm looking forward to chatting more about that today. Thank you.
I think that's fantastic. And you've got a great background. I know you've seen this industry evolve through numerous iterations. Its most recent, what is now being referred to as generative AI. I know you just touched on a lot of really interesting topics we'll dive into over the course of this episode, but to give the listeners a good baseline, in your own words, could you define what this new term generative AI means? And then talk to me a little bit about who generative AI is important for.
Okay. So I think for the average person out there, generative AI is AI where the output resembles human content. It resembles language that seems like it's constructed by a human. More technically, generative AI systems are based on algorithms that learn from a vast amount of input data. And the most recent cases that we'll dig into, that would be all of the digital data that's on the web, as well as some knowledge bases being things like Wikipedia that give structure and associate terms and some apparent meaning to this vast sea of language data. And so what's going on under the hood is that there's this vast amount of data is being used to learn the patterns of how we as humans speak and how we write. And with innovations both from Google's 2017 Transformer paper, incredible compute innovations, as well as just ongoing neural networks developments, there's the possibility, as many of us have now tried since November 30th, 2022, when ChatGPT was launched, to engage with an generative AI system in a way that most people had not engaged with an AI system. Perhaps in the past, you had AI secondary characters in a video game, or there'd maybe been some predictive analytics in an enterprise application you were using. But the core of generative AI is using these patterns of words at a vast scale that then for us makes it seem like this computer is it's almost human like content that's being output. And it's really a powerful difference between systems from even 6 months ago, right? 7 months ago, we've had a sea change. And your second question is, who is it most, pardon
Who
me,
is it most
Alex.
important? Who is it most important for?
Who's it most important for? Well, right now, we're in the hype cycle, and it's a little bit of it's important for everyone. This is great for everything. And I respect the hype as someone who's in Silicon Valley because I understand the role that it plays in the duality of how we get investment and how we build products and how we have to compete with other hype cycles, be them metaverse, most recently in blockchain. But I think that this is really important for creating customer-centric tools that support voice bots, textual, marketing text. I think that marketing and customer support are the first areas that are going to see innovations in these really human seeming engagements that can be created for their customers. So those are the two areas, the people I see that it'll most affect. But then I want to also flip that and say, I think the holy grail of enterprise innovation that isn't as shiny and sparkly as some of the other, key terms I've just mentioned is enterprise intranet search. So the ability to search through a company's resources to answer questions for employees or answer questions for employees that are then passed on to customers. I think that is really key because it will help you and I do our jobs better and reduce mundane tasks. And reducing mundane tasks is something that AI in general is, aims to do. Any technology, we try to elevate our work tasks up the difficulty chain. So we want, as humans, to not do the same thing every day, but to understand patterns and reduce repetition and do more and more challenging tasks. And those more challenging tasks are very hard for computers. So don't fret. Many of us will still have jobs. On the other hand, those lower level tasks are really great opportunities for computers to come in, generative AI systems to come in and support us.
Yeah, you've raised some really interesting points, some of which we've discussed in prior conversations, but I'll summarize those quickly for the listeners. We've talked about, and I love the way that you put it, some hype cycles around the metaverse, around blockchain. I think we're definitely seeing a surge of a hype cycle around generative AI. To another one of your points, the barrier to entry for consuming this type of technology, in my observation, has been lowered as of November of last year.
I agree.
Chat GPT being so readily available for the average consumer, broaching the prosumer market, and as you're alluding to, breaking into the enterprise space as well, I think is going to have widespread benefit, both in terms of the way consumers interact with this type of technology, but also the way large enterprises similar to Orange derive value from this type of technology. But I do want to touch on another point that you've made, which is unique to the other conversations that I've had in the last couple of months, which are the implications around education and career development. I love what you said because it goes against the grain, in my opinion, of what we have seen in the news around job displacement and the automation of tasks. I think you delineate very well that artificial intelligence will help eliminate some mundane tasks, but you put a great perspective on the state of the market by saying it will free humans up to do more challenging tasks. And I find that to be a very pragmatic and uplifting perspective. If you could expand on that a bit, Sarah, what would
Sure.
you what would you say some interesting applications of humans and AI working together might be that we haven't necessarily considered yet?
Yeah, and I appreciate your perspective as well, because I think that we're at a point where, because of the hype, there are some main primary narratives that seem to be they seem to be extremes. They're either fear-based or wildly outlandish. And the reality is somewhere in between. I've heard that with new innovations, grossly out we overestimate the near-term change and then underestimate the long-term change. And that's not my quote, but I strongly agree. So to your point, what are the ways that this hasn't been using and it hasn't been clear, and with collaboration between humans and these tools, more what will become clear in the near term? So what is happening now? What do we see now? Right now, ChatGPT and GPT-based technologies are being used in a lot of marketing writing and text and ideation and creativity-based tasks. So they're really good for this blank page problem. Maybe call it writer's block, call it also from a prompt perspective. We've all grown up to some extent feeling comfortable with Google searches. And so we can figure out how to engineer prompts that give us an output that we're looking for. But humans and computers working together there's a long-standing history of this. And in artificial intelligence, we've developed agents, which are little software products that help humans complete tasks. And there's been research in this multimodal, with sensors. There's a lot of use in industry. But I think that the next wave of LLM-based technology will be using the trust which a lot of users have gained from this first iteration. And I want to maybe push back on that trust. But if we think of this as kind of a consumer life cycle, using the trust that the consumer has from the output of their large language model chat interface and turning that into a resource that maybe takes the place of a Google search, right? So I think that chat interfaces are going to transform the way that humans work with computers, in the fact that we may no longer have Google PageRank be as important in terms of Google being the font of all knowledge. Maybe that verb itself, I'm going to Google it, will cease to be as relevant. I think we're going to have a split in our society where people who have become very adept at using chat technology may go to use this as their primary resource for new information, for information discovery. I think that could have profound implications on the enterprise search and our ecosystems. If we think of trying to make a decision about, say, is Siri or Google Home or Apple HomePod, what is the best smart device? It's hard to evaluate which is in just a discrete test, but maybe as many consumers do, people make decisions based on their ecosystem. So I imagine in the future that OpenAI will leverage this collaboration with Microsoft to really pivot the enterprise solutions that the average person spends a lot of their time on. And by changing that habit, anytime you use an ecosystem, you're providing them with a lot of data. And when you provide an ecosystem with a lot of data, it allows them to personalize and learn your preferences. And this could change the way that we online ask for and receive new information, answer questions, and could that pivot could reshuffle the companies that we get many of our goods and services from, or at least our initial point of contact for those goods and services. Because I do think that especially younger consumers will feel more comfortable using these tools as a co-author, as a co-pilot.
That's really interesting. And Sarah, you're touching on a topic that actually comes up with a lot of clients that I speak to. We're in an interesting environment from a macro perspective at the moment. There have been macroeconomic headwinds that many, large mid-market startup businesses have needed to navigate in terms of personnel decisions, R&D, investment decisions. Specifically within tech, there have been a lot of reductions in force. So let me just paint that as the personnel backdrop for humans interacting with machines. Simultaneously, this new technology appears seemingly out of nowhere last year. To the untrained eye, it can come across as this all-seeing oracle that can answer any question. So if I'm sitting from the perspective of someone in the workforce, that spells a threat. I love the direction that you're taking your point of view, because the way that you phrased it, and I will have to look up this quote, we overestimate the near-term impact and underestimate the long-term impact. And what I'm finding in my personal experience with our clients is these LLMs, content assistance or generation tools, they help alleviate writer's block. They help get the first notes on the page. But that human expertise of motivating someone to act, of understanding the nuance of what's being discussed, is from what I'm gathering from what you're saying, not quite, and maybe this is 2 points, not quite the capability and not quite the near-term intent of this technology. And I think that is a very good dynamic to exist, specifically in the environment that we find ourselves in now.
I kind of started thinking about one word you said, intent, human intent. And I think one of the challenges with the output of large language model systems is that we're calling that output information. And I'm not sure if that's a great word. There's a researcher I spoke with last week who would like us to remember how large language models work on the inside and view the output as synthetic media. because information is constructed by a human. And if words are not constructed by a human, is it information? And this is a very interesting discussion, and I think that this is nothing that we're going to solve today, but it touches on another topic in this space, which is anthropomorphizing these systems. As you noted, they're impressive. And if you don't know the inner workings, or if you're new to this space, or actually that's not fair. If you're a human, you automatically give intention to text. You make meaning out of the kind of bag of words that you get back. And this bag of words is really good. And so it's our natural tendency to find meaning. I mean, think of conspiracy theories. Like, we try to find meaning in disparate facts. And this goes back to our core human animal backgrounds. This is how we probably survived on the African belt, right? We needed to understand signal. So when I hear the word hallucination, I also get a little bit concerned that we're anthropomorphizing these systems. And I think maybe a better word would be error. And by anthropomorphizing these systems and using the word hallucination, we're evoking spirituality, creativity, ideas, and words that are very close to human souls. And again, I want to take a step back and say, this is a machine, people. It's an error. And so I just kind of went on that tirade because of you mentioning intention. But I think harnessing our human intention to complete tasks, to work together with each other, to build companies and support customers, we can use these tools to do that. But I want to push back on hallucinations and perhaps information as output. And then, sorry, Alex, please.
No need to apologize. Quite the contrary.
I was like, what was your question again?
Quite the contrary, Sarah. I am always looking for a good reason to weave the word anthropomorphize into a conversation, and I'm glad that you took it.
No.
And
well, it's interesting, right? Like, it's really interesting how we do this. And it's not a bad thing. It's a natural thing. And this is why this is how we relate to our pets. I mean, this is like, I'll fight you if you don't think my cat totally understands what like, this is a totally human behavior.
It is.
But it is. And it's something that has it's a core part of who we are. And there's a reason that it's in the fabric of our humanity. But it also, in this case, confers trust. And trust is something that should be earned. And I like the fact that, as you said, a lot of people are saying, oh, ChatGPT is bad for education. Hey, ChatGPT has gotten a lot of folks who had not previously playing with AI. It's lowered the barrier to entry in this space. There's a ton of things that I had to learn in school that are now, solved problems. The ensemble learning of the past is completely out the window. It's great that I understand what's going on, but if the tools are out there, there's great documentation, there's a great open source community, then we have a lot of people entering this workspace who are going to be, because some of these current iterations are so fun, they're sticky, they're good products, as you and I in the Bay Area would say. But as you also mentioned, that means that that's in conflict with the macroeconomic trend of letting people go in a lot of mid-sized companies. even the larger companies. And I think that there's a an essence of a lot of mid-sized companies that have AI teams are taking a step back and saying, we were going to build this internally, and now we can buy this. And so we don't need some of these internal people. And I think that if you look at the current strategic ecosystem, the strategically, this is exactly what OpenAI and some of these companies want to do. They're looking for customers, and to some degree, the price point has been so low that it's really lowered the barrier in that dimension as well. It's an accessible price point to learn these technologies. And then when you're playing with them at home, you bring them into the workspace and say, hey, I've got some great ways that we can automate some workflows. But more broadly, if you look at these macroeconomic trends, the OpenAI lost $54 million in 2022, and it has 100 employees. The technologies that we've been talking about are extremely, extremely compute intensive, which means there are probably two companies who are making money out of LLMs right now. One is NVIDIA, and the other is whatever power company they were accessing to run these scrapes of the web. I doubt it's PG&E as a PG&E customer.
So Sarah, I want to touch on.
You can cut that. You can cut that. I don't want them coming after me.
That sounds good. Sarah, I want to touch on a theme that we have alluded to throughout the episode, and that is the theme trust. As these companies, be them large enterprises, startups, even providers in this space, as these companies embark on their journey to either build LLMs, incorporate generative AI into their go-to-market, how can companies earn the trust of their consumer base and use this technology in a way that will not feel invasive or not feel like it is infringing on the privacy or the rights of the consumer?
Great question. I think that this is going to be, I do want to give respect to OpenAI for creating a great product, because LLMs have been around, vectorized data, word embeddings have been around, but they created a front end that's a great experience. And I think that engendered trust in a way that they can parlay into building a partner and customer business that will have some really big, impressive names. What does that mean, when the rubber hits the road for everyone else? Now, when you come into a situation where you're trying to win a sale from a customer, I think it's really important to say, how can I define my company, and what do I have that makes my company unique? And in most cases, this question before November 30th, 2022 would be, I have a relationship, and with this customer, I have relationships with customers like this customer, and I have a long-standing data set that includes well-documented metadata of these relationships. Okay, so maybe that was a computer scientist describing an enterprise customer engagement, but I think that fundamentally has not changed. If you came into a space where you are providing a service and you have a great customer field, and because of that ongoing engagement over years, you have a ton of data that reflects your customers, then you are going to be in a great situation in the large language model realm. Why? Because you've already gained the trust and you've already created great results for your customers. And now you're just laying a technical technology on top of that, a technical layer that says we can optimize this past data even more. We can surface new insights. We can respond to your questions in a more naturalistic way, and we can have deeper information discovery from our pre-existing information using some of these vector-based approaches, right? So when you think about trust, I don't think about someone who's coming to the market tomorrow with I can solve X, Y, and Z with large language models or chat GPT for, rug cleaning, whatever it may be. But I do think that trust is about relationships. And from a technical perspective, it's about data. And if you can leverage that data to create naturalistic experiences for your existing customers, you're going to make them happy and you're going to gain more. Data is key, and data is what has really amplified the large language model scene. So I think a lot of companies need to understand that their data is gold. At Orange, we take our customer engagement extremely seriously. We are customer centric. Our concern is great customer experience. And we know that we're sitting on a gold mine of data. We know past preferences. And now we have a tool that allows us to personalize and create even better experiences, and we're amplifying that trust.
Fantastic. Well, Sarah, I know we've covered a lot of ground today. And thank you for all of the insight. I have one final question now that we're on the topic of Orange and the projects that you're working on. What that's on your plate right now or in your pipeline excites you the most that you're working on?
Thank you, because I've been talking a lot about generative. And I hope this is as articulate as needed. But the thing that excites me the most is working on low resource language projects. We have a lot of customers in our West African. Well, okay, let me start at the beginning. Hi, my name is Sarah, and I'm really interested in low resource language projects. This is why I joined Orange 5 years ago. Orange is in a particularly well-suited position to support our customers in numerous areas. We have a bank, we have video game company, we have entertainment, streaming services, we lay internet cable, we have satellites. What don't we do? Well, we are focused on providing great consumer experiences to everyone. And many of our customers are in places that have underserved languages. So Orange is in Francophone Africa, but a lot of people in these regions no longer speak French. Is not considered a necessary language as much as new trends in political and community economics spring up. There's ability to buy and sell products locally, and with that local focus, a lot of people have been returning to local languages that are spoken or comparatively underserved. And so what does that mean? It means that with the shifting dynamics of these areas, as well as other, macroeconomic forces, we have a lot of customers who do not speak French or would prefer not to speak French. Now, I describe to the uninitiated low resource languages as languages where there's no Reddit. Although in the past week that illusion is less powerful, but it means that there's not a lot of data online. So I am very passionate about selling people products in whatever language they would like and providing goods and services in whatever language they would like. So recently I ran a machine translation competition between French and Bambara that was text-based. We had 20 participants, cash prizes. The winners are from all over the globe. And while only a couple of the participants actually spoke Bambara, almost all of the participants in the competition spoke or had family members who spoke a different low resource language. And this was a really impressive experience because it reminded us that no matter how much the large language model hype cycle, brings us cool, sticky products and crazy new applications and really, and the Pope in a puffer coat, whatever it may be, I think it's really important to remember that natural language processing is not a solved domain. And there are a lot of challenges out there for the global population that are not English centric or not French centric. And I'm hoping that, when we were working on this last iteration of the translation project, everyone was saying, okay, large language models have dropped. How relevant are they for this domain? And so our next step is to experiment with that and figure out how can you augment large language models for languages that are basically small language models and have their own orthographic challenges. And at the end of the day, it's really about customer service and people. So I think it's been a really great experience, and I've met a lot of really interesting people. And I trust that that will continue to be a great way to leverage new technologies with a global economy and global engagement. But I do want to reiterate that LLMs have not solved AI. There's probably going to be a plateau right now where OpenAI has mentioned they don't have plans to release a GPT-5, Bard, different, the llamas, different models are out there. And there's been a lot of optimization around compute and running these models on smaller and smaller memory devices. And so I would watch to see what Apple is up to, because I think they're going to jump on the scene with a pretty interesting privacy oriented solution, as is their brand. But I'm really excited about the power of communication and the power of speaking to people in their own language. So watch this space for more machine translation and low resource language innovations.
Well, thank you, Sarah. And this has been a fascinating discussion, one which I think the audience is really going to appreciate, not only for the information and insight that you've provided, but I think also a very actionable, optimistic, and pragmatic point of view. Again, for the listeners, this was Sarah Luger. Sarah, thank you very much for joining. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Thank you, Alex. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next time here on Motivation AI Matters. Until then, take a moment to make sure you're subscribed and get to know Motivation AI better by checking out the resource library at versado.com.